Hello everybody, I'm Tony Craig. This is F1 Grandstand. Oh, we've got a lot to get into tonight's show for your daily Formula One news. Day 3 of the Barcelona test. Christian Horner in Paris meeting Ben Sulayem. Well, we joined up some dots on that one. James Vowles finally talks to the press about the problems over at Williams and why they're really not in Barcelona. The FIA want to take a closer look at the Aero designs from Ferrari for the SF26. What does that mean for them? Horner, well, we're going to get to that a little bit later. And Mekies, like, what's he been saying about Isaac Hadjar and why we're going to do a very, very quick Mekies versus Marko comparison. And also, Mekies has also been talking about what makes Max Verstappen special. Oh, there's so much to get into tonight. So if you're an F1 fan, you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you do enjoy the video, smash a like on it. And also do me a quick favor. When you subscribe, make sure behind the subscribe button, you've got the bell all icon tick. That way you can decide which bits of our content that you want to engage with. Thank you for everyone who's joining in already. I love it. We've only just started. Let's see who's in the chat. We've got Nathan. Good. It's good morning for you, my friend, isn't it? Gemma, queen of the chat, already in there. Something tells me Horner isn't in Paris just for the Hermes and great shopping. You are very right, Gemma. Jaman's in there. Hello, hello, hello. Daily Focus is in there. Cyber Red. Hey, hey, hey. Sudrish. Nice to have you in there, buddy. Drop Tune. Brilliant. Glad you're in there as well, buddy. Kyle's in there. Straight in with the first super chat of the night. Get your super chats in as well. Kyle says, Horner in Paris. I know what you're going to... Horner in Paris sounds like the title of a romantic comedy. Well, we have Emily in Paris, right? I know my girlfriend likes to watch that. But Horner in Paris. It also sounds like a dodgy movie, I think, from Paris Hilton. Don't Google it. But there you go. Yeah, it's an interesting one. We're going to get into the Horner in Paris story. I'm getting naughty. Whenever I say that, I'm thinking about Paris Hilton now. Horner in Paris, why he was there. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But first of all, hey, Reezy, we're going to start with... I'm just going to like that super chat. We're going to start with tonight. We're going to start with the rundown, obviously. Barcelona test still in full swing. It's day 3, baby. We saw McLaren finally hit the track. Let's give you the rundown. Let me give you the rundown of day 3. So here's what you need to know. So obviously 6 out of the 11 teams managed to get out on track today in Barcelona. The big news on that is McLaren finally made an appearance, which is good news for them. I mean, they've been playing the waiting game, haven't they? Lando Norris was in action this morning. He was on at about 11 a.m. Then returned out on track late on. But by far, from all the reports coming out, the most impressive car so far is the W17 Mercedes. And guess what? Guess who was quickest on track today? It was a Mercedes, but it wasn't George Russell. Kimi Antonelli put a 117 in, 117.3, 0.2 quicker than Russell, and it's the fastest time I think we've seen this week. Look, the W17 covered 150 laps. They'd already done 197 laps on their power unit between the teams running their power unit, so they have gathered the most amount of data. The Mercedes look like it hasn't been falling apart on track, hadn't any stoppages. There were 3 red flags today, but we'll get into that in just a minute. 3 stoppages. None of them were a Mercedes. Well, none of them were George Russell or Kimi Antonelli. So we're going to get into that in a minute as well. But yeah, so far so good for Mercedes. George Russell smiling from ear to ear. And I really liked... Did you see George Russell's interview with Sky Sports F1? I caught it today. And he was saying that I thought he was very... What I like about George Russell, I know he's a bit like... We all call him the prefect, right? He reminds us of the school prefect, George Russell. You know, he's what is he? The head of the Drivers Association. But anyway, he was talking about his first impressions of the new car. He said he's impressed. But the thing I liked about his interview was he said that he thought the Ferrari looks very strong. And he also said the Red Bull power unit looks good. So that's coming from George. But again, Mercedes looking like they're in top spot at the moment. But yeah, great news for Kimi Antonelli, doing the world of good for his confidence to be fastest time of the day today and being quicker than George Russell. I know they're not going for performance. Everyone's going to be going, it's only a shakedown. Yeah, I know it's a shakedown. Look, racers will still race, right? Whether it's a shakedown, whether it's pushing shopping trolleys around, the local supermarket, it's in their DNA. And I tell you one thing, it will have annoyed George Russell that today that Kimi was on the softs on his run. George did go out on the harder compound, the C3s, but still, when they were both on the softs, Kimi was 0.2 quicker than George Russell. So yeah. It's an interesting situation, but so obviously McLaren, Mercedes, Alpine, both drivers in action, Racing Bulls, Audi also. Now, here's the situation: Arvid Lindblad, Oliver Behrman, and Nico Hulkenberg all had red flag incidents. Obviously technical issues. Was it power units? We don't. No, that we don't get that much information. They might release it over the next couple of days. I haven't seen it. If it's come out in the time I've been preparing the show, then maybe. But basically, for Audi, I think Audi are more on the nervous side now, because even though it's their sort of maiden year in Formula One, they've taken over an established team in Sauber. So you would hope that Audi are getting on top of these gremlins. I mean, when you look at Cadillac, who are really a totally brand new team, yes, they've said that they're debugging, but they haven't had that many major issues. They've not been breaking down where, Audi had caused a red flag today. No crashes like yesterday with Isaac Hadjar. So yeah, no Red Bull out on track today, obviously. They need to repair that car. They've still got 1 day left available to them. Each team gets 3 days of testing that they're allowed to do out of the 5. Red Bull have already completed 2 days, so we're probably going to see them, I would guess, Friday would be my guess. So yeah, that's literally the run under. Nothing too exciting. So still to run, you've got Alpine, Audi, Haas, Mercedes, Racing Bulls, and Red Bull. And the remaining 5 teams, they're the ones with 1 day left. And the remaining 5 teams can run on both days, which is Cadillac, Ferrari, McLaren. Is that everybody? Cadillac, Ferrari, yeah, McLaren. Yeah, so they can run. They've got 2 more days of running. Aston Martin, obviously, will have 2 days of running as well if they finally show up. Apparently, they're there. Apparently, Aston Martin got there, but they've not been out on track yet. So that's really catching you up on what's been going on. Nothing too exciting, actually, on that. I'm going to go to the chat. Oh, yeah, Cyber Red. Straight in there with the Mercedes is looking strong. Yeah. I saw that one, Jaman, as well. Yeah, Mercedes are looking strong. They're definitely looking like they're in pole position at the minute. Jaman says, with Horner's track record, it could be horny in Paris. Stop it, Jaman. Hey, listen, he was cleared. You got to remember with Horner, he's been cleared of all accusations, wasn't he? Well, not accusations, but he was cleared of any wrongdoing, according to their internal investigation, etc., etc. Sudrish, Max has gone back to Monaco because he's sick. Has he? Is that right, Sudrish? That's breaking news. Breaking news! Max Verstappen's gone back to Monaco. I didn't know that. Well, what's wrong with him, Sudrish? I didn't see that. Yeah, Sudrish also said about George Russell saying he was impressed with the Red Bull Ford powertrain. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is looking good. What's happening, Drop? Absolutely, just keep missing bits of what TC's and what are you missing? Kimi going to be champion, Drop Tune says. Oh, that would throw a spanner in the works, wouldn't it? Kimi Antonelli beats George Russell because do you remember we had the conversation about potentially that George Russell's got a jeopardy clause in his contract, that because Russell wanted a performance clause that meant he got an automatic extension through 27. That the rumour is that he's got a jeopardy clause in his contract, which means that they can release him from his contract if Kimi Antonelli finishes higher than him. Interesting. Yeah, so I don't know, but yeah, that's today's news. There's no drama. But we're going to get into the more interesting stuff in a second. So that's your rundown. Barcelona, day 3. We're going to get into now. Finally, Williams. James Vowles finally sheds a little bit of light on what's going on at Williams, why they didn't make it to Barcelona. There's been all the rumours, all the speculation. Vowles hadn't spoken to any journalists until today. And this is coming out from the race. So, you know, we can take it as read that this is good information. So this is the first thing. The rumour about Williams not passing the homologation test, untrue. It has passed all the necessary. They did pass all the necessary homologation tests. That's the first thing. And James Vowles said, yes, we passed all the necessary tests, and we will be obviously ready to run in Bahrain. But that's not until the 11th of February. But what Vowles said, let's get to his quotes. There's no knowledge of the so Williams had failed crash testing out to Barcelona test. So what he was asked was about the crash tests and whether the car's horrendously overweight, because those were the rumours of why Williams aren't there. This is what Vowles said. There's no knowledge of the weight until we get to Bahrain in terms of understanding where the weight is up to. So that's a little bit of avoidance, Vowles. You're not saying you're at weight. You're at the minimum weight, and you're not admitting that you're overweight. You basically deferred until Bahrain. He's basically just avoided that one. Said, well, we're not going to know until we get to Bahrain. All right. And then he says this to clarify. There's not a single person that truly know it. It is impossible to know it because you need the car together without sensors in the right form, and that doesn't exist today. So what he's basically saying is none of the cars that we're seeing are going to be in their true form for Australia, or even probably by the final test in Bahrain. So he's basically saying the weight discussion is a non-starter because none of the teams know what the form of their car will be yet. He said if we end up being overweight target, then from that point along, it will be an aggressive program to get it off. All cars will be going on a Weight Watchers plan. But I think, he didn't say that, that's me adding it in. But I think right now, anything that you're seeing as murmurings in the media are just murmurings. I'll come out and explain to everyone at the point where we know that. And that isn't today. The inference is that the car is overweight, but Vowles will not discuss it because there is not yet a known exact mass. So how heavy the car may be cannot be specified. So yes, what Vowles is saying, I don't need to answer about the weight because no one knows what their car truly weighs, because the form we're seeing of the cars now is not going to be the form in Australia or by the final test in Bahrain. So stop asking about my weight, is what he's saying. Jeez, stop asking about my weight. Stop asking me, I'm not asking you if my bum looks big in this dress. Do you know what I mean? Stop asking about the weight. That's Vowles' message. But the other thing was he wanted to say, Williams did fail to pass some tests at the first attempt for the safety test, but Vowles said those were only a blip in the grand scheme of things. And it's true. Everybody should pass their first the first test, because if you pass your first safety test, chassis, nose cone, or all the parts that they're testing, you don't know if you could have pushed the envelope further. So everyone's going to, you want to fail your first test, and you want to pass on like your second or third attempt when you just get it absolutely dialed in. But he said, yeah, they're just a blip. He also said it was possible for the FW48 to have a run at Barcelona, but the cost to the remainder of the program would have been too great. So what he's basically saying now is we could have gone to Barcelona. Everyone's saying that we couldn't go. It's not. He's basically trying to sell it to everyone as it was a choice. If we had gone, the benefit of being in Barcelona would have been not great enough for the consequence of not being in the factory doing what they need to do to improve the parts they need to improve. We could have made it, but in doing so, I would have had to turn upside down the impact on the spares, components, and updates across Bahrain and Melbourne and beyond. And the evaluation of it was that for running in a cold, damp Barcelona against doing a virtual test against a spare situation, and frankly there were 0 points for us running in a shakedown test, so that's why we made the decision, and I stand by it. That was the right thing to do, is to make sure we're turning up at Bahrain correctly prepared and prepared in Melbourne as well. Now James Vowles did need to speak up, because obviously going through the Formula One community, it's like, oh, this is disastrous for Williams. But and the thing about that is, as soon as the commentators, the YouTubers, the press are all pointing to the fact that Williams haven't made it and they're the only team not to make it to the first test. Well, everybody gets the jitters within Williams, right? Your sponsors are going, oh shit. You know, your partners are going, what's going on? Like that seed of like negativity spreads like a cancer through. So Vowles had to speak up, and he's done his best to try and say we're in okay shape. We could have been there like everybody else. It was the right decision. The weight is a non-argument because nobody knows the weight. And he's tried, but here's the truth of it. Here's the truth of it. And there's no getting away from this, Volzy. And I know you watch the show. There's no getting away from this. If you were in better shape like the teams, of course you would have rather have been at Barcelona than not, regardless of the wet, the damp track. You need to get some running time, don't you? The team needs to work together. The drivers need to come to get to grips with the actual car, not just the simulator car. Because all the drivers say, driving the real car is different to the virtual testing in the simulator. It is not the same. It is not the same. So the reason why you didn't make it, obviously, is you couldn't make it. You know, you're behind on spares production. You're behind on whatever upgrades you're doing. You're just not ready. So it doesn't matter how much you spin it. It doesn't change the fact that Williams are just not ready. And they are behind the curve compared to everybody else. But that was his attempt at trying to smooth it over from a PR point of view. And I want to get your reaction to that. Yes, Thanes in the chat. Good to have you in there. Crackites in there as well. Let me try and catch up with some of this chat. It's hard when it's spinning through. Oh, so Gemma's agreeing with Volzy. Gemma's saying they made the right call, it seems, in this time frame. So you're backing Volzy. You think he did the right thing? I think it's a bit of a spin from Volzy at this point. Spin. Don't look over here. Like, you know, there's no problems here. I don't know. I do think it's bigger. I think it's bigger than he lets on. It is a bigger disappointment than Volzy's trying to make out. Oh yeah. I'm on top chat. Thane. You're right. I've gone to live chat. Yeah, and so Thane says, yeah, since when he's doing a live test better than a sim test? Yeah, I mean, get out on track. It's a brand new car. So yeah, I'm not buying it, Volzy. I hear what you're saying. And Gemma says, yeah, it's a very PR answer. It is a very PR answer. Oh, Jaman says Vowles put out a video statement on the Williams YouTube page. Did he basically say the same thing I just said, Jaman? Was that what it was? Because I haven't caught up on that one. I haven't seen him actually. I got it from this story's coming from the race, so maybe I don't know if they took it from there. Cyber Red says, I wonder how much of a change the Ferrari Spec B and C are going to be. I know this Ferrari we've seen so far is the Spec A, but I wonder how much Ferrari's going to add to this car. Well, actually, Cyber Red, very good point, because I'm coming to a story in this show about the FIA want a closer look at Ferrari's plans for their Aero upgrade. So in answer to your question, I think Ferrari's Spec A car will be very different to their final, or let's say first car they delivered to the grid in Melbourne. And they won't be the only one, right? All the cars will be different to what we've seen, these little bits of footage that we've seen from Barcelona. They're all going to be very, and that's what Vowles was saying as well, wasn't it? He was basically saying the same thing. Like, we're not seeing the cars, we're not seeing them in their true form. They are going to be different. So the weight conversation is not really relevant until we know what the final form of the car is. So yeah, I think that's the point, Cyberred. I think we'll see a very different Ferrari by Melbourne for sure. Then Gemma says he's spinning this and it's a press for the press. He is. But what can you do? You're up against it and things are fudged. It's true. You've got to do something. You got to come up with some fight, haven't you? You got to come up with some explanations because you know your owners, you know your sponsors, your partners are going to be going, but why the F aren't we in Barcelona? Because here's the other thing: if you're not getting track running time, even though it's a closed test, the teams are still putting out social media images and videos, and those are getting big views because the fan community want to see glimpses. And if you've paid 10 million to have your logo on a car, you're thinking this is a missed opportunity. You're going to be annoyed. You know, sponsors do drive this game, right? The money in the, it's a business. And if the sponsors aren't getting their airtime because Williams haven't got their shit together, well, the buck stops with Vowles at that point. It's like, why are we not out on track? Why are we not getting this out? Yes, Mario. I can see you, buddy. I can see you in the chat there. But yeah, so there's a lot of people that will be unhappy about it, and we've all picked up on it. So it's honestly, if I had to mark his response out of 10, I'm giving it a 6. It's a thinly veiled attempt to appease probably sponsors, to appease the media that, hey, we're not in too bad a shape. Yeah, and I think that's all it is. It doesn't quite cut it, Vowles. It doesn't. So yeah, that's your update. That's your update on Williams. And now we're getting to, I know Thane's going to be annoyed at this because he's not bothered about Horner updates, but we do have a big Horner update. Horner in Paris, baby. Third story of the night. What the hell was Horner doing over in Paris? We're going to join up some dots. So Christian Horner, he met with the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, during a visit to Paris. All hugs. Sulayem was putting pictures out on his social media. My brother from another mother, Christian Horner. Obviously, speculation as what the hell were they talking about? What's Horner doing in Paris? Well, we can shed some light. So, first of all, like I just said, the FIA president shared images on his own social media channels of him greeting former Red Bull boss outside the Paris office. And Ben Sulayem splits his office time between Paris and Zurich. And this is his quote. Wonderful to welcome Christian Horner to the FIA Paris offices today. Good to see you, my friend. These two guys obviously get on, right? But why was Horner in Paris? Okay. This is where it gets a little bit interesting because there's a few things we need to look at here. First of all, Horner was officially in Paris to attend the Retromobile Classic and Vintage Car Show, which celebrates its 50th anniversary event this week in the city, running until February the 1st. So you want me to believe Horner's in Paris to go to a vintage car show? That's nothing to see here, Gov. I'm just going to Paris to go to a vintage car show. Just happens to be that the FIA are in Paris and I'm meeting up with Ben. But also, guess who else is headquarters are in Paris? Yeah, Renault, right? So it's a thinly veiled cover. Oh, Horner's in Paris to this classic car show. All right. He's meeting Ben Sulayem, obviously. He's nipping into the FIA. But also Renault. Renault are in Paris also. So, as we know, let's join up a few dots. Let's join up a few dots. What do we think's going on here? Well, we know Alpine's parent company, Renault, are based in Paris. And we know Horner's, if you believe some of the reports came out yesterday, that according to Craig Slater, and I'm going to come to him in a minute, I don't really think about Craig Slater as a Formula One sort of commentator on the sport, but he basically said, I think it was him, he basically has alluded like he's really close friends with Horner, and there's been some drips and drabs coming out that basically the deal with Otro Capital for the 24% purchase of Alpine for Otro Capital shares is basically a done deal. Sort of done, basically a done deal. And Renault are not going to veto it, apparently. The only thing is, this is what the story said. They said, but what Renault don't want to do, even though they've agreed that, yes, Horner, we approve your purchase of those shares, and we approve what you want as in running of the team. The only thing is, we've got this deal with Toto Wolff and Mercedes for our power unit, and you're not going to be available till after April to sort of sit down and be trackside. So I think Renault want to delay upsetting the apple cart whilst they're building. And to be fair, Alpine have started, according to Flavio Briatore, already developed a really strong relationship with Mercedes over this customer relationship for the power units. And they don't want to cock that up with any Horner sort of, bombshells. So what do we believe? Look, until we get an official announcement, it is all conjecture. It's all just joining up dots. But why do I think Horner was in Paris? I believe it's just to finally handshake with Renault and go, look, we've agreed a deal with Otro in principle, where the sum of money we were going to pay, the sale terms, we're happy with that. And I believe it's a final discussion on dotting the I's and crossing the T's on how he fits into the Alpine team with Renault. That's why I think he's in Paris. Now, going to see his old mate Ben Sulayem, of course he's going to do that, because if that deal for some reason falls apart at the 11th hour, and there's always a chance that can happen, does he want to keep his options open for that 12th Formula One team on the grid? Yeah, of course he does. Horner's been open, because you've got to remember, that's Horner's bargaining chip right now. Horner is a very shrewd guy. Him being pictured with Ben Sulayem outside the offices of the FIA, whilst in a negotiation with Otro Capital, gives him a perception that he could walk away from that deal, so they can't screw him for the price. Right, he could basically say, "Look, this is a fair price for these shares." And ultimately, I do have another option. I'm very close with Ben Sulayem. I'm close with the FIA, and I do have other avenues. Because if everyone thinks that Horner has only got one avenue, and it's the purchase of those Otro Capital shares, well, if you're Otro Capital, you're going to drive the price of them shares up to, a stupidly high price. It's probably above market value. So, getting pictured with Ben Sulayem posting that picture on his social media, all of that could be just to reinforce his negotiating position with Otro Capital. Those are the games that I think are afoot, and I think Ben's his mate, and he probably asked him to post it because it creates the it creates a situation where he can go to Otro. I'm not paying 700 million. I'm paying 550 million. That's the fair price. I do have another option. I've got loads of money backing me. And if we don't do this deal, I'll go to my old mate Ben and I'll just launch my own team. I've got the money behind to do it. I've got Ben Sulayem in my pocket. And that's what I think it is. I think it's about optics. So it keeps his negotiating position strong, so they can't mess around with price. That's what I actually think. But I want to know, what do you think? Yeah, Reevesy, he's gone, done deal with Renault. That's what I think it is. That's what I think it is. But the Ben thing helps just solidify his position, so there's no last minute shenanigans. We want more money, blah blah blah. Droptune said the FIA do have a classic car show very near to the offices every year. I've taken cars to it in the past. Have you, Droptune? Brilliant. But he must be there doing some sort of deal. Yeah, it's a great cover story though, isn't it? I'm here for the classic vintage car show, the Resto mod or whatever the hell it was. Yeah, I think so. Encryption. Yeah, DT. F1 Grandstand went up 300 subs in 24 hours. Let's go, DT. Let's go. We're aiming, and if you're watching, we're aiming for 10,000 subscribers. I'll tell you what, DT, we've had over 2,500 subscribers in the last 28 days. We're aiming to get to 10. Here's the goal for the community. We want to get to 10,000 subscribers before Melbourne. That's a lofty goal. We can do it. What do we need? About 2,700, I think. before. Let's see if we can do it. I hope we can. Gemma saying, yeah, he plays a great game of chess. Yeah, it's all shenanigans, isn't it? Optics matter. Oh, drop tuned. I don't know if I can read that one out, mate. I don't know if I can read that one out. Horner's in Ben Sulliam. Thane says Horner's desperate to get back into F1. He'd never get a 12th team as long as Toto is there. So Alpine is the only shot. Horner has no leverage. They can charge him 5B for those shares. The thing is, Thane, I think he's got to try everything he can. And I think having them pictures with Ben, showing that relationship, maybe it stops Otro going crazy. Nathan says disagree. I think he's scrambling. He doesn't have many options. You think? Yeah, I think he's got two options. I think he's got the Alpine deal, or somehow wrangling his own team. I think those are his two avenues at the moment. I think he has a potential third option, which he wouldn't want to take, and he wouldn't take, and that would be should Ferrari have a terrible start to the season and they let Fred Vasseur go. I think John Elkin would try and open up that dialogue to bring Horner into Ferrari? He's already tried. Horner probably shut that down because he does want ownership. But let's say the ownership options were suddenly off the table. Could I think Horner could end up at Ferrari? Not really. Hey Sema, nice to have you in the chat. That's right, DT. 10k by the end of Feb. That's the goal. 10,000 subs by the end of Feb. Kevin, I can see in the chat there, my friend. Alpine has Merc power. Horner needs ink on paper. That was the other thing that I was reading, Kevin, and you might have seen the same article. It comes down to like Renault are happy with Horner, but they don't want to upset Mercedes. But Renault have already signed a deal with Mercedes, and I don't think there was a Horner clause in it that said, deal's off the table now, we're not supplying with any more engines because Horner's involved. I mean, I doubt it. Drop Tune said, if things go really Pete Tong for Williams, maybe there. Well, I always, that was my outside chance. If you've ever watched my Christian Horner playlist, there's so many videos from sort of July last year. One of the conversations was about Williams. Because James Vowles was, when everybody was slating Horner, really, they were sort of mocking him a little bit. He's calling up every team on the grid, trying to get, it was Andy Cowell who was being a bit snide about Horner, who was saying, and Ayu Komatsu said he'd called Haas, and he'd made contact, and everyone was sort of saying, yeah, Horner's made contact with every team on the grid, blah, blah, blah. And James Vowles was actually quite respectful. He said, we actually haven't had any contact with Christian Horner. But would we be open to a conversation? Yeah, why not? Teams evolve all the time. And this is your team principal, who's basically could be putting his own job at risk. And I thought James Vowles was a class act. And it made me think, I wonder whether Williams were considering some sort of investment from Horner and, bringing him into the team. And I don't know. I mean, Williams, why not Williams? How funded are Williams right now? Every team's like Flavio Briatore said, every Formula One team this season is really well funded when it comes to sponsors because of the trajectory of Formula One has gone through the roof over the last 12 months. The value of F1 has just skyrocketed. So all the teams have not had a problem filling up their sponsorship quota. So, yeah, it's... And if you think Alpine, and talking on Kevin's point there, Alpine's valuation, they've gone for, they reckon they're at a 2.5 billion valuation, and it's not from on-track performance, is it? How can Alpine's valuation go up in a year from 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion in 1 year when you're dead last on the grid? Right? The only way your team valuation is you are benefited because the entire sector, the entire whole of Formula One's value has gone up. So Alpine have benefited from that. And so that's why, obviously, that's why the guys want to sell their shares from Ocho Capital. What they bought them for 123 million, selling them for 168 million. It wasn't a lot, 168 million, and now they're going to sell for over 500 million. It's not a bad return, is it? So yeah, it's an interesting one, but Horner in Paris, and also we've got some comments actually from Craig Slater. I mean, what are your views on Craig Slater? He wants to sort of make out he's really close, and he might be really close with Horner. But this is what Craig Slater has to say. Slater said to Sky Sports News, Christian Horner with the president of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, does this mean that Christian Horner is very intently pursuing putting a consortium to place a 12th team on the F1 grid? And this is what Craig Slater said. He's been looking at that. I understand this meeting, which they've had today, and you can see the two men embracing, very friendly, was just a chat between friends. So that wasn't the centre point of what they were discussing. The latest on Christian Horner is that he has made serious approach with his business associates to buy the shareholding in Alpine, currently held by Otro Capital. He's one of a number of interested parties holding discussions with them, as I understand it, though the Renault group has ultimate governance in terms of who that shareholding is sold to. Certainly at the moment. So let's see how that develops. But it's a serious approach from Horner and his business associates looking to buy into that team, which would be his quickest way of getting back into Formula One. Well, that's not really... Look, Slater, I'm not sure how close he is, but do I think the Ben Sulayem relationship's key for Horner? I think it matters. I do think it matters, because when we think about how hard it is to get a license to be a Formula One team on the grid, it is difficult, because let me take you back. To get the 11th license, which Cadillac got, they rejected Mario Andretti's bid for a team. And it was only when General Motors took over Mario Andretti's bid that the application to enter F1 via the Cadillac brand ultimately got approved. Because what they want is a team not just to operate as a team. They've got to bring value outside of that. Are they bringing new eyeballs to the sport? Are they spending money themselves and getting loads of promotion for F1 in general? Brand value is super key, and all the other teams have got to agree. I think that the final, which team can take the final 12th slot, because all the other teams have got to agree that this team is good for the sport. This team brings value, that they get benefit from this. And so I think the Ben Sulayem relationship is good, but yeah, that road to owning a Formula One team is fraught with obstacles and challenges, and you've got to prove a lot to all the other teams on the grid before you will get that license. It's not just a case of turning up with $500 million. It's more complicated. But having an ally like Sulayem, of course, is an advantage. But yeah, I'm going to go to the chat. Yeah, the price, DT says the price went up the moment Horner was interested. CyberEd said, I wish Horner would go to Williams then. I'm not a big fan of Alpine, but I would love to see Williams on top again. Yeah, that's because we remember the glory years of Williams, don't we? Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, Damon Hill winning, Adrian Newey designing the cars, Patrick Head over there back in the 90s. Brilliant. Jaman says, for the F1 fans, it'd be best if Horner could find the funds, manufacturers and partners for the 12th team. I'm not saying it's impossible. I still think Horner's got the relationships and the chops and the following and the influence. He could get a 12th team. How quickly that would happen? I mean, he would want to have that team in place before 27, I'm sure. Yeah, and Nathan says, to my comments about the Mario Andretti bid, which then became the Cadillac bid, he said, yeah, Cadillac is still the same team, just under his name. Exactly, because Nathan, you're proving the point. Because to Formula One, brand is important. And obviously, we're seeing in Formula One such a huge growth in America. Well, you want a brand like Cadillac, don't you? We obviously had Haas, but bringing in a works team under the brand from General Motors or under the brand Cadillac is fantastic for the American fans. And that's why I like that Cadillac are poking the bear of Ford as well, because I actually think that we could see Ford having a works team in Formula One in the next few years as well. Oh, Thane says Horner was loudly booed at the F1 75-year celebration in England. Are we talking about the same guy here? Well, everyone needs a pantomime villain, Thane. And whatever you, and boo him, and here's the thing with Horner. Love him or loathe him, we all know he's Marmite. You cannot say he's not a winner, because his achievements do speak for themselves, right? And having a pantomime villain in Formula One is good for the sport. It is. Even Toto Wolff said it. Having a protagonist is good for the sport. And for us as fans, I want the drama. I want to see Horner running down the pit lane, you know, fighting for his drivers, you know, going at it with Toto Wolff. I want to see it. Like, yes, I do. Obviously, you know, he's also annoying at times, and, you know, you're going to disagree with him a lot. But, you know, he's good for the sport. Yeah, Nathan's still booing. He's still booing, but he's good for the sport. Like, you need a villain in the story, and he plays the part brilliantly. And also, and again, I know the scandal is pretty awful, all that stuff, but again, we have to say everything was investigated in the way it was investigated, and he was cleared of any wrongdoing. So we have to put that out there. The rumours will, and the mud will stick with him forever, but he was cleared of wrongdoing. Kyle says the biggest difference between Andretti bid and Cadillacs was they dropped Michael Andretti from Andretti Motorsports. Michael MBS did not get along. That's why Horner knows what ring to kiss. Well, I think there's a lot of that has to go on, for sure. Drop Tune said he's definitely not my cup of tea and I wouldn't work for him, but he should be an F1. I'm with you, Drop Tune. Sema, only Bogan's boo. Was disgusting to hear that. Yeah, I mean, but you got to remember, Sema, sometimes people are booing not because I didn't see it. I'm not commenting, but I don't think Horner's the sort of guy that will mind the boos, if you see what I mean. Like, he knows his character in the sport. He knows his part within F1, and I just don't think boos would bother him. I think he'd like play up to it, you know. And so and everyone loves. And here's the other thing you got to remember: the most powerful story is a redemption story. So if Horner gets back into F1 and somehow redeems himself and wins over the F1 community in a massive way, everyone deserves a second chance, right? Thane says the scandal really made him look bad. It's one thing to be a bad guy on track. I look, and when your personal character, when your personal character's in question, I agree. It was, and then Thane says it's not clear they settled, which does not mean he's not guilty. Well, it does mean it's dropped though, doesn't it? I mean, that's the end of it, you know, because there's no verdict. So you got to just go, innocent until proven guilty, right? You know, I believe in that. I think innocent until proven guilty. I know that means some people get away with it, but it also means that, you know, we don't spend too much, that sort of the people that don't have lives ruined because of accusations, right? So, yeah, innocent until proven guilty for me. And it was a scandal. Oh, yeah, Nathan says, yeah, the Williams redemption would be a huge story, wouldn't it? Oh, speaking of stories, I better move on from this one, actually, because I've got other stuff to talk about. I'm chatting for ages here. Yeah, so that is your Horner update. But that's what we think's going on. Finalising the situation with Renault is the bottom line. God, I talked about it for 20 minutes. I could have just said that. Right, another big story. FIA. What are they doing? They're looking at the Ferrari SF26. They want to take a close look at these Aero upgrades. So I'll keep this one brief. It's just a quick one. So what it is, if the FIA intends to review Ferrari's Aero concepts closely before giving them the green light to their design for the 26 regulations. Apparently, the delays have been caused by Jason Somerville quit his role in the FIA at the end of November, and they're behind. And the side pods on the Scuderia 2026 car are very compact. But they're not their only clever idea so far. And this is what the problem is. The Scuderia are also one of the F1 teams that have integrated a hole in the rear diffuser of their car. And the F1 rules require teams to create more basic floors to reduce downforce, but the opening can increase the speed of airflow to the diffuser. And I think it comes down to, is this going to create more dirty air behind, which is what they were trying to get rid of. So basically all of these aero concepts, and it won't just be Ferrari, by the way, because there's other, I think Mercedes have looked at this as a solution. I think Cadillac have looked at this as a solution, so have Audi. So all of these these aggressive aero designs are now being reviewed. Looking at Ferrari SF26 specifically, and we could see, basically what it means is we could see some pretty drastic changes from what we've seen on track in Barcelona. So that's your update on the SF26. And now we've got another one. This is an interesting one. This is Mekies versus Marko. What they've done is we've done a little comparison, because Laurent Mekies handled yesterday's Isaac Hadjar's crash in testing at Barcelona, where he hit the wall on turn 14. And truthfully, what's come out is it was a Isaac Hadjar error. There wasn't anything wrong with the car. And it's how Mekies handled it compared to how Helmut Marko would have handled it. And it sort of shows how the two new sort of bosses, or the new boss is dealing with things. And in a nutshell, he handled it with, Marko's handled it very sensitively and protected Hadjar. What he said was, look, it was a very tricky condition this afternoon, so very unfortunate that it finished that way, but it's part of the game. Very tricky, a lot of work to do on many aspects, and this sort of thing can happen. These difficulties came today after a very, very positive day yesterday in terms of the number of laps Isaac could complete in the car, and in terms of his learning and development and feedback to the engineers. So he responded in a really quite arm round the shoulder of Hadjar, don't worry, focused on the positives. He was quickest in testing the day before. These things can happen, very tricky conditions. And they basically put that in contrast to Helmut Marko's comments when Isaac Hadjar last year crashed the car on the formation lap. And he said, oh, embarrassing. And it's just like the two different styles couldn't be more like obvious. You know, the one time Helmut Marko straight away, yeah, that's his fault. Totally embarrassing. What the were you doing? Don't do that again. And Laurent Mekies has got a completely different management style. And yeah, and I thought it was quite interesting. So do they miss Helmut Marko? I think Max misses him a little bit, but probably not too much. His influence with drivers like Isaac Hadjar, obviously he found him, but I think this approach from Mekies is a good one. I think it's a good one, and it'll be interesting to see Hadjar's development throughout this year. And he also, Laurent Mekies went on to talk about Max Verstappen. 3 reasons that make Max Verstappen special. I know. Can you guess what they are? Can you guess why Mekies thinks Max Verstappen special? Yeah, well, you can see it on the headline. Top one is his brain power, apparently. So this is what Mekies said on Verstappen, and then you can tell me what you think in the chat. So, look, Mekies specified 3 specific areas in which Red Bull have an advantage with Verstappen in the number 1 seat. And he said, I think we have a triple advantage with Max. First of all, because his level of commitment. Okay. Fair enough. Secondly, his feel for the car and the extra brain power he has in the car to deal with all those issues. And the influence of drivers on performance will increase with the new regulations. And finally, Max can push the team in the right direction like no other, so that we can get even more out of the car and engine. In that respect, he gives us a significant boost. So let there be no doubt about what our ultimate goal is. Max is involved in every discussion, every analysis, and the way we take risks. He is included in everything. That's pretty bold, right? You know, I get it, but could you blow any more smoke up Max Verstappen's arse? Like, I do get it, because you could also take those comments and go, yeah, Max is involved in everything because, you know, he's always had that, hasn't he? Since Horner days, he's been number one. He sort of demands it, doesn't he? You want me to drive for you, then this is my level of input. Of course, you get good feedback from him if you want to build a car that suits Max, right? And if your other driver's got a different driving style, then they're not going to get the same development for their car, because they're going to develop the car for Max, and the other guy's got to either change his driving style or somehow find a way to be as quick as Max. Luckily, Isaac Hadjar, I think, is more similar in driving style to be than anyone else we've seen in the Red Bull seat for a while. But yeah, it's an interesting situation. Mekies basically, you know, saying how great Max is, saying he's involved in every decision. He's driving a lot of the development of the car. So again, the real question is, are we going to see a Red Bull that only Max can drive? That's my question. With these comments, does it make you worried a little bit? I don't know. You can't win a championship with one car. You cannot win a constructors with one car. You need both drivers to be performing. And I think we've seen that mistake before. But that's what Mekies said. I want to know what you think about that. I'm going to come back to the chat. Sudri says, love me some Max glazing. Thane says, while I don't think it's fair to give Hadjar too much shit, I think you can say, but this is a big deal since now Max might not be able to run for the rest of the week. It is a big deal, like crashing, because they've only got one car there, haven't they? So if one of the drivers puts it in the wall, it can affect, well, it obviously does affect the other driver's run time. So it is significant, and we don't know the full extent. And like I said, my guess was that when he heard Hadjar talking about getting to grips with the controls, the boost, and sort of pushing the car a little bit, he obviously just pushed it too much. Oh, Boa says, Verstappen is the modern day Senna. Now, Senna is my favourite driver, 100%. I think Verstappen has got some similarities. That kind of, the demands of the team are absolutely similar to Senna. And I still think Max Verstappen's the fastest guy on the grid, right? Like, is he the most likable? No, I'm sure. No, he isn't. Does his personality seem to afford him some advantages sometimes, where I think other drivers may have got a penalty, he seems to get away with more? Yeah, it seems that way. And does he have a team which literally responds to his requests? Yes. Name another team on the grid that responds to their drivers as well as Red Bull do for Max. And is it a good strategy? Adrian Newey says it's his greatest source of information in developing the car, listening to the drivers. Sudri says Max basically lives and breathes racing. Yeah, because when you say to Max, what did you do? Oh, you had a day off today. What did you do? I did some sim racing. On your day off, you were racing on the sims, right, with your mates. Having a good time. So, yeah, you're right. I don't think there's another racer on the grid that races as much as Max. He races for a job. He races in WEC with his own team. He races the GT, the Porsche GT category, didn't he? He races, and when he's not doing that, he's on his simulator racing. Like, is there another racer that loves racing as much as Max, or does as many hours? I don't know. I doubt it. Kyle says, I would live and breathe sewage if someone wanted to pay me 40 mil a year to be a garbage man. Yeah, but Max doesn't. I don't think Max cares about the money. Nah, he's got enough money, hasn't he? Max doesn't need more money. And I'm not even sure he's that bothered about winning more world driver championships than anybody else. I just think Max loves racing. And as soon as he doesn't enjoy it, he'll leave Formula One and race in another series and enjoy that. I think if you were looking at it as a truest blood racer, I think it's Max. I think it's Max. And I think a lot of that probably is when you see Jos, his dad, I think he's the same. He just wasn't as good as Max, was he? He was in F1, not really any success, but he made it to F1. That's still a hell of an achievement. He was the most successful Dutch driver before Max Verstappen. His dad was. So yeah, I think it is racing for Max, and I respect that. I do. But the real question is it the right strategy for a team? That's what I'm really asking. Is Laurent Mekies' strategy to sort of focus it all on Max, build a car for Max, is that the way to win in 2026? I suppose he's the best sensor, like who was it who said that? I saw it in the chat. Nathan said it. Your drivers are your best sensors. I agree with that, Nathan. And when you've got two sensors, like when you've got, like Aston Martin, you've got Fernando Alonso or Lance Stroll, which sensor's more valuable, right? With feedback, I don't know. I might be surprised. Maybe Lance Stroll's brilliant. But I think when it comes to Hadjar and Verstappen, you have to put, time on track as a consideration. And Max Verstappen is a veteran now. He's 28, but he's a veteran of Formula One. His feedback surely has to carry more weight than Hadjar. But is he selfish in his feedback? Yeah, of course he is. He wants the best car that suits him. So yeah, that's what I think. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how Red Bull have surprised me already so far. They've surprised me with the powertrain. They've surprised me with their side pod design. And I think the actual car they put out on track seems to be more sculpted in that Coke bottle way more than any of the cars. I don't know. I think Red Bull have, considering Laurent Mekies said they weren't moving their resources from the 25 car until the end of the season. They've still seemed to have come up with some pretty good ideas, haven't they? And still they've brought a car that's pretty competitive and brought a power unit that's looking pretty decent as well. Big credit to Red Bull on that respect, I think. CyberEd said, yeah, if the two drivers have the same driving style, but if they don't, I don't think that's a smart move. That's what I think, CyberEd. And I think that's probably a thing you should consider. If you're a team boss, bringing in drivers. And I think you really should consider driving style, shouldn't you? Especially if you're developing a car. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why Hadjar got his promotion, because I do think Hadjar and Max are pretty similar in the way they like a really positive front end on the car. They seem to be able to drive it quickly. And Adrian Newey said himself, the fastest cars are the hardest ones to drive. They have a very positive front end and a quite a loose or twitchy rear end. But if you can drive them, that's the fastest car on the track. Thane says, fun fact, Lance Stroll is good in the wet, which is a great equaliser. Well, you've got to be a good driver to be good in the wet, Thane. He is good in the wet. I agree. I'm looking forward to seeing what Lance has been very quiet in the off-season. I've not seen any stuff from it. He doesn't like talking to the press anyway. But let's see what type of Lance Stroll turns up in Bahrain. Reevesy says, it works for Red Bull, but doubt it could work with another team. But maybe, here's the thing. If Red Bull works this year, where they do develop a car behind Max's feedback, and it just so happens that Isaac Hadjar likes the same type of car as Max, could that be a driver recruitment strategy in the future for a team boss? Instead of like genuinely looking to see, do our drivers match in styles, and that helps us with the development of the car. Maybe that should be more of a consideration. Hey, Gareth, welcome to the chat, my friend. You are very, very welcome. Yeah, and if you are watching on the sidelines, I get that. Sometimes I like to watch, but really friendly community. Jump in the chat, say hello. Very, very friendly bunch. No questions too silly. You're very, very welcome. And you can maybe learn a bit about Formula One. I tell you what, we've got some great people in the community. Encyclopedic knowledge of Formula One. So, yeah, ask away, get in the chat, ask your questions, and it's really good to have you. But what I would say, Gareth, you're a bit bloody late because this is the end of the show. We start 7:30 GMT, Monday to Friday. And some bonus ones at the weekend where we do our watch-alongs and Sunday. So yeah, but lovely to have you, Gareth. Great to see you in the chat. Jaman says, I've seen an analysis of the other drivers on the grid who like the same type of car as Max. Leclerc, true, he does. Behrman and Hadjar. Yeah, Leclerc likes an aggressive front end, doesn't he? He seems to go pretty quick with that as well. Interesting point, because Lewis Hamilton doesn't like that. He likes a very stable car. So they do have clashing driving styles. Oh, Gareth, thank you for that, buddy. Your knowledge is limited, but the channel is great. I love watching. Oh, Gareth. Well, I love that you love watching, and you are very welcome here, mate. Yeah, so make sure you tune in tomorrow, because that's it. But if you're only just, you can rewind and watch it from the beginning and you know, catch up to date. We've got 4 or 5 good stories tonight. So if you rewind, you can watch them all on that. But I will be back tomorrow with day 4 of Barcelona testing. Any other news that comes out, of course, if there's any breaking news, you'll see videos. So make sure you've got your bell all icon tick, so any content that comes out, you will get a notification, and you can choose if you want to engage with it or not. But thanks, guys. Thank you to all of you in the chat. It's been fun as always. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you all tomorrow. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, don't forget, we're going for 10,000 subs before Melbourne. Let's make that happen, guys. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Ta-ta.